question. Oh, never mind.
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to ask if we are like strictly talking fantasy or if I had a couple that were non-fantasy.
No, that's a good, you can talk about any anticipated releases for the second half. I think that we'll mostly end up talking about fantasy, but yeah, you can talk about anything. Hello, everybody. Roger will be joining us soon. Jashana is sadly sick today, so she couldn't make it, but we are going to be chatting about anticipated releases, mostly fantasy, but also maybe some other things for the second half of the year. And currently, I am joined by Kristen and Tori. Like I said, Roger will join us soon, but we're just going to go ahead and kick it off going in order of month. So we'll start with July. And Tori, do you want to kick it off and say some anticipated releases?
Yeah, so do you want to like just start with one and go in order, or just like list all the ones that we're excited for each month?
I have a feeling we're going to have some overlap. So you can go ahead and maybe let's plan on listing 2 each. For I know the further into the year we get, the probably fewer that there will be. But you can go ahead and list 2 first. If you'd like.
The biggest one for sure right now for me is Lightbringer by Pierce Brown, book 6.
Yeah, that's a
Red Rising series. So I'm currently reading book 5 right now, Dark Age, and I've been reading it for like 2 months, which is terrible because just other stuff has been going on, but it's still excellent. But yeah, I'm so excited to see where the series is going to go in Lightbringer. So that's the first one. That's probably my biggest one of the entire year. And then another one I'm really looking forward to is called Darkwater Daughter by H.M. Long. This is the first book in a new series. It's called the Wintersea series. And this is the author of, I think it's Hall of Smoke was her first book that came out. Yeah. And this one, I just finished reading Amina Al-Sarafi, which I love. So I'm like in the mood for some more seafaring and pirates. And this it sounds perfect. And the blurb on it says that it'll be perfect for fans of like R.J. Barker, Naomi Novik, Adrienne Young. So it sounds really good.
Oh, I didn't know about this one.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm usually pretty on top of new releases, but I don't think I've seen it mentioned before. Let me pull it up for anybody that ends up wanting to watch. That's a cool cover. Very vibrant blue.
Very piratey.
Did you read her other work?
No, I haven't read. I still have it on my TBR, but I haven't read it yet. But still gonna get to it. But this one, it sounds great. And she's also on TikTok, which is how I found her. We're mutuals on TikTok, and she always does like these like edits of the book and gives like Pirates of the Caribbean vibes. So I was like, oh, this sounds good. And some people have already had arcs for it and read it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is incredible.
It sounds cool. I liked the other one, the one that you mentioned. I think the next one was one of those companion stories where you don't have to read it before or after necessarily. But I just didn't feel compelled to keep going. But I liked the other work that she did. So I'm excited to see. I'm writing it down. I have a notebook with mine, but I have to add this one too. Roger, we're going to list 2 each with July, and then kind of probably it'll trickle down as we get further into the year. But do you have any I'll let you go next. Do you have a couple for July that are top of the list? Also, for anybody wondering, this one is scheduled for July 11th currently.
I'm trying to remember when some things come out. I don't know that I have a ton for July. I have a bunch for August.
Okay, so should we skip you?
Yes.
I'm surprised. I have so many for July. I have a lot for August too, though. And then September, I'm annoyed because I don't have that many, but every single one, I'm like, oh yes, this one. And then there's the next one. I'm like, wait, that one too. And so September's one where they're all high priority, basically. Kristen, do you want to go next?
Sure. Okay. So I do agree about Lightbringer. I recently binge read the first 3 Red Rising books, and I'm kind of obsessed.
Yeah.
You haven't started the continuation yet, right?
No, I've been kind of debating if I should wait until the last book's coming out so that I can then binge all of those.
Right.
Because Pierce Brown tends to give crazy cliffhangers, and I just don't know if I'll be able to live with that.
I need someone else to not like the continuation.
Yeah.
Everybody loves it.
You don't like the continuation? I didn't know this.
Iron Gold, it upset me because
Really?
you can't of course say too much about it, but I thought it was really well written. I just was personally hurt by the actions of some of our characters. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop
no.
it. So
That makes me
I
nervous.
have a hard time with continuations anyway, because whenever a series has finished, I'm like, okay, the door is closed.
Mhm.
Let them rest in peace, please. I don't want them going through it anymore. So I'm very picky, but I thought it was good. I was just frustrated by the events, so I just pretend it doesn't
It
exist.
does exist. I can see that.
That's valid.
But I do see so many people flipping out all the time about how good the continuation is, and I'm like, do I give it another try?
I would say where I am in Dark Age right now, like I've liked Iron Gold. I thought it was really good. It took me a minute to get adjusted to it. But once I got into Dark Age, I was like, oh, this is it. This is epic. This is incredible. And I think the way Iron Gold ends, it just sets up Dark Age perfectly. So Dark Age is going really well. So if you want to give it another try, I like highly recommend.
Sarah is my bookish twin. We pretty much always feel the same on everything. So this is not surprising, Sarah, that you also don't love it. Kristen, I'm so sorry that we kind of
No, that's totally okay. I love to
go
talk
ahead
about
though.
Red Rising.
What's another one?
So ones that are not Lightbringer on my list, I'm looking forward to Thief, Liar, Lady by D.L. Soria. That one's a new one coming from Del Rey, and it's like a Cinderella adult fantasy.
Ooh.
The cover is really cool. That was really like what drew me to that one.
What the heck? You both are bringing such great. I thought I was like, oh, we're gonna all say the same things.
That
anyway,
sorry, coming July 11th, but I just like love the look of that. That's really going to be a cover buy for me.
Ooh.
What's another one too besides
and
that
then
one?
Another one, which is probably going to be on your list, is Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong.
I am curious about that one.
That one's her first adult fantasy, and she's sticking with the inspired by Shakespeare theme. And this one is based on Antony and Cleopatra. So it sounds like it could be good.
Ooh.
I think it's going to be the Fairy Loot adult book too for July.
Yeah, I think I've seen that as well, which I'm always like, oh, thank goodness, whenever they do some anticipated releases that I have.
Me too.
I am curious about this one because it's interesting. These Violent Delights was quite popular, and I feel like it went through one of those, a bunch of people are loving it, and then it got hyped enough where all of a sudden a bunch of people's expectations were too high, and then they were let down. And I was kind of in the middle about it. I didn't hate it or anything, but I didn't absolutely love it either. So I am curious to see how she does with this. And then also just in general, writing adult and not just YA. I think it'll be interesting to see the contrast. Do you want to go ahead and say another?
Sure. Another one that I have that is not fantasy is One of Us is Back by Karen M. McManus. It's the third One of Us is Lying books.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
I don't remember like too much from the first two, but I'm just gonna dive into the third anyway because why not?
Series that you feel like you have to know what happened previously really well in the front of your mind, or not as much?
I'm feeling like you probably won't. Like the second book, I feel like I was like trying to remember what happened in the first one, and I pretty easily like fell back into it. I think my memory will be jogged once I start.
That's good. I'll probably just list off a bunch because I feel bad for Roger. I feel like he's like just waiting until we're done.
I found a couple. I started looking through my stuff. I found a couple that I have that are July releases.
Okay. Do you want to say them?
Well, I feel like one of them you guys probably covered before I got on, The Sun and the Void.
We have not.
Actually.
By Gabriela Romero La Cruz. It's like South American inspired fantasy.
Oh.
Yeah, we you actually got here just about when we started.
Oh,
so
okay.
You didn't miss much. You're good. I had that one ready to go though, because that one's one I'm very excited about. The edition is one of those. Go ahead.
It's gonna be Illumicrates, right, in July?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's going to be, so I've seen Illumicrate, I think it's just doing a special edition, right? Not even just their book box. Aren't they just, or am I thinking of Waterstones? I think Waterstones has their own exclusive, and then I think Illumicrate's going to have one. I think it's going to be, there's going to be so many special editions of it, and I'm annoyed because I'm like, I don't know yet if I like it. And Waterstones, a lot of times once they sell out, they're not available anymore. So, you know.
I know, and then you can only get them secondhand for like $100, which is painful.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I'm really excited about that one too. I have an ARC, so I'm like, can I try to read it before it goes out so then I can, well, obviously we should read ARCs, you know, so that we can be responsible reviewers. But there's also a part of me that wants to read it just so I know if I need those editions. Anyway, yeah. What were a couple other ones, Roger?
And then the other one I have is Blade of Dream, which I'm on the fence about because I didn't love City of Ash. It was like okay, but not amazing. And this is the follow-up to that by Daniel, whatever his name is, Abraham. But I feel like they always seem to love his complete trilogies, and they always say that the first one starts super slow. So I was like, maybe I'll give it a try. I don't know. We'll see.
I DNF'd the first book, so.
Oh, I have the first book too.
I mean, it wasn't terrible.
No, I didn't think it was terrible. I thought the writing was nice. It just does world building in a way that I don't really like, where it's like, let me describe the entire city to you, and then let me describe the history of the city, and then slowly, after pages and pages, we'll zero in on your character. And I'm just like, I don't care. I mean, care if it's relevant to them, but I'm very picky about that kind of world building.
Well, it's definitely one of those ones where it's trying to make the city like a character on its own, where it wants to have a lot of flavor to the city. And I feel like I remember hearing that the whole trilogy is supposed to take place over the same year. So you're almost like going back and supposed to be like doing the same events from a different perspective. And I don't know if I will love that or hate it.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to go about it regardless. I mean, I think it's a cool idea. You'll have to let me know.
If I ever end up reading, I'm really bad with ARCs right now. Like my percentage on NetGalley is truly a crime against humanity. So
it's probably better than mine. I'm not going to lie.
I'm trying so hard to get that ratio up. That's like
I mean, I'm at like almost 60%, so it's not like as bad as it could be, but like it's not like 80% or 90% that they say they want, which
yeah,
I think
people that manage to do that deserve like a medal. And then the only other thing that I have is Wolf Song by TJ Klune, but I think it's being like re-released or released in a trad pub format. It's like his original series. It's like a high school male werewolf contemporary romance. I don't really know, but I like TJ Klune, except for Under the Whispering Door was fine. But the other ones that I've read have been really good. So I'm hopeful.
I like TJ Klune too, but I hate werewolves. So I don't know why, but like ever since I was a kid, anytime a werewolf showed up in my vampire books, I would just be like, get out of here. Like no one wants you.
So you were like a teen wolf girl. You weren't drooling over whatever his name was.
No, I did not watch that. I was like, this is not for me.
Were you an Edward all the way person? Jacob never even was on the radar.
I wasn't really a Twilight person. I did read them, but the one with the baby, like just I was like, nope.
I'll never forget that name because it's so terrible.
It's so
like
awful.
I merged your mom's names and it's now Renesmee.
Okay.
And the creepy CGI baby in the movie, I can't. Like horrifying. Nightmare fuel.
Really scary.
I think I may have only ever seen the first movie and it was so bad. And
it doesn't matter.
I like Robert Pattinson. He is a weird guy. He's so funny though, because I don't know if you've seen his weird like a day in my life video that he made where it's just, you have to watch it. It's just him being really, really weird in, I think, New York City, like all day long. He's thinking about food or something and he goes and gets a hot dog from a New York vendor. It's weird though. You're like, what the heck is this? So it's not what you would expect. I don't think people realize how weird he is, but in a fun, like
absolutely
bizarre way. You definitely have to look it up. Getting back to our anticipated releases, so I'll go ahead and list a few off. So it's not just a July anticipated releases, and we can start getting into other ones later in the year. So I have a House of Roots and Ruin, which is within House of Salt and Sorrows. I am pretty excited about this one. It's like fantasy horror, and I'm normally a pansy when it comes to horror leaning books or just the horror genre. And House of Salt and Sorrows was a lot of fun for me because it was like the right amount of creepy for me because I'm such a wimp. So I'm excited about that one.
I can't hear House of Blank and Blank without being triggered.
I know. But to be fair, House of Salt and Sorrow was out before the Crescent City books. That's what you're thinking of, right?
House of Sky and yes.
Yeah.
Just the naming trend in general is like, oh, here we go.
I know.
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad because by the time they finally put this book out, we're all so over it.
Yeah.
Over the
Blank of Blank and Blank.
Yep.
Yeah. And then I think Kristen, you got an arc of this, right? This one?
I did, yeah.
Is it the Yasad heir or is the J actually?
I don't know how to pronounce it, so I will not try.
But this one sounds really cool if anybody is curious about looking into this one. I think it's a debut.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know too much about it, but I thought it sounded really cool when
It's an Egyptian-inspired fantasy, which is really cool.
Yeah, Roger, I'm surprised that wasn't immediately top of your list.
Well, because I'm hesitant about it ever since hearing Jashana DNF it.
Don't ever be hesitant. Jashana, if she were here, she would not mind me saying this. She DNFs things all the time. It shouldn't ever deter you.
Are we talking like ancient Egyptian inspired? Or are we talking more like Muslim Egypt inspired?
I thought ancient, but I'm not 100% sure.
Because I feel like isn't Daughters of Izdihar also Egyptian inspired, but I feel like it's more modern Egypt, less ancient Egypt inspired from what I hear about it.
Ironically, I DNF'd that one, so I don't know. I DNF'd it pretty quick. We also have Bonesmith by Nikki Pau-Preto, which she has drawn the lucky end of, her covers are always so good. So that alone, but also I did like her other YA trilogy, Crown of Feathers. This one seems very much like it's going to have kind of death bone type of magic. Seems like a really good. I'm surprised it's coming out in the summer because it feels like a good fall read from everything I've seen. But it sounds really, really cool.
Yeah. Wow, Gideon the Ninth meets Game of Thrones. Well, Game of Thrones White Walkers. Wow.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we've talked about Secret Project 3. Secret Project 3, I'm excited about that. That one's the one I'm the most excited for of all the Secret Projects. Also,
is it the Stormlight adjacent one, or is it just one in the Cosmere?
Yeah, I think it's Stormlight adjacent. No, is that a lie? It's the one.
I can't remember which is which.
It's the most anime seeming. It's hard. I don't want to upset anybody who doesn't want to know anything. So I'm trying not to say.
Put the title on the screen, Al. Get some angry comments.
I mean, you can find it very easily on Amazon, on Goodreads. So
those were some of my July ones, but I'm good to jump into August unless Tori or Kristen, you had other ones.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay, Roger, August, since that's when a lot of yours are coming out.
The first one I have is Lolth's Warrior, which I think is book 33 in the Drizzt saga.
Oh my gosh.
I'm actually surprised that it's not higher.
It's the end of the third. It's like the end of the most recent trilogy, and I always like to wait for the full trilogy to be out, and then I just read them back to back because they're quite short usually. And this is the first time that I feel like I really arrived as a booktuber because I have an arc of it, and it's like books that I've been reading since I was like a child, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so fancy. So
that's so exciting.
That's cool.
I like how you worded that. how it's the first time you've arrived as a booktuber.
I've made it.
I'm
Am I
not
supposed to say
bothering.
multiple or just one?
No, you can say more. I'm not bothering to put that one on the screen though, because there's
It's a
too
cool
many.
cover though. It is a cool cover. And then the next one is The Phoenix King by Aparna Varma, which I think it's like a trad pub republishing of a indie pub from last year. And so I think it's desert fantasy, very much like that vibe. And then the other one I have is The Midnight Kingdom by Tara Sim, which is the follow-up to City of Dusk.
Yep. Those are some of mine as well. There's The Phoenix King. Kristen, do you also have an arc of that one?
I do not.
Not of
I
that one.
do, and I need to read
do.
it. I'm the worst.
Orbit's very good about sending
Yes.
out arcs.
They're generous. They're definitely
Yeah.
generous.
Yeah, that one does sound really cool. And there's that this as well. I always think it's kind of fun when there's a little bit of character art and whatnot to go along with.
I think it
releases.
helps that it's been out for more than a year, because I think when I was looking it up, I saw Angela's review from 2021, because it was originally called like The Boy with Fire when it was Indie Pub.
Oh.
And so Orbit is picking it up as a traditionally published. And who knows how much it's changed from,
Mhm.
or editing or whatever has gone into it.
What was the third one you mentioned?
The Midnight Kingdom by Tara Sim.
Right.
Book 2 in is it City of Dusk? Is that the name of the trilogy? I don't even know.
It's bringing up it was bringing up some like nonfiction book. So I was like, wait a second, that's not the series name. It was like, you know how there's a colon and then oftentimes a really long amount of words after. I'm like, that's not it. Here it is though. Yes.
And like,
I'm
I
interested
quite
in that
enjoyed
one.
City of Dusk, but I wasn't like head over heels in love with it. It was one of those situations where I think it was another one where it was like a YA author's first
Mhm.
adult debut, and they always, at least last year when that was happening pretty frequently, they seem to have an interesting tone where the characters still feel very much like they belong in a YA book, but then the book's contents are not as like campy and fun YA-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like always kind of like a dichotomy that it can be very hit or miss. And it looks like the series is The Dark Gods.
This one I would describe almost exactly like what you said, where it almost feels like if we had a new adult category that it would fit in there, as long as you don't require there to be a ton of explicit sex scenes for your books to be considered new adult, which I know I think some people do. But I do think that there is that in between that you're describing that I would categorize that one as new adult. But
the
I
world
also
was cool, having like the different
Yes.
sections of the cities having different patron deities, and they each had different kinds of magic. So like I liked all of that. So I'm curious. Hopefully it's great. We'll see.
Yeah, I that one it had some ups and downs for me where I was a little at times feeling like I was waiting for something to really pull me in, and then it would have those really explosive cool moments or interesting character moments, and then we'd kind of slow down again. So the pacing was a little funny as well. But I think part of it is just because there's a lot of perspectives in
Yeah.
that one. Tori, do you want to go next for August?
Unfortunately, I don't have anything in August. So
Oh, wow.
sorry.
How dare you?
I know.
Kristen, do you have any?
I do. The first one I have is Masters of Death by Olivia Blake, which is another
Yeah.
book that was previously independently published and is now being traditionally published by Tor. I believe this one's about vampires, so up my alley. Hopefully no werewolves.
It's
Yeah, a werewolf will show up.
Just to
It's,
spite you.
Probably.
I was reading about this one and it sounds quite fun because it's like somebody is like a real estate agent or something.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get a poltergeist out. And so they hire what are they called? People who can like speak with the dead.
Mhm.
Mediums.
Toys. Yeah, I think they hire a medium to try to get rid of it or something like that. And isn't it a little bit of a romance too?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it sounds very charming and a little weird.
Yeah. I'm also looking forward to Thornhenge by T. Kingfisher.
Of course.
I'm sure that's on your list too.
It is indeed. It
Um,
sounds really good. And I don't know how she puts out so many books a
I
year.
know.
I liked this edition I saw. I thought that
Ooh,
was
I
really
haven't
pretty
seen that
edition.
one.
Oh wow.
But I think this is the cover more people are gonna see, likely.
Yeah.
Very fairy tale-esque from what I gathered of the description of this one.
I really want her to write a sequel to Nettle and Bone.
I loved Nettle and Bone. There's a part of me that's like, I don't know if I want I already like it so much that I don't want to risk kind of what I was talking about with continuations. I'm like, I don't want to risk it potentially. What would you want if there was a sequel? What would you want from it?
Well, they kind of said what their next goal is. So I feel like it could be that.
That would be fun.
Hmm.
Would you want kind of the crew to reassemble, or would you want new
Yes.
characters? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like one of them in particular, the fairy godmother, that I feel like she only gets to be there kind of at the end, really.
Yeah.
This has Shrek vibes, and I can get behind that. Yep, I can get behind that as well.
Mhm.
And then, were there other ones, Kristen?
Yes. Also, a fantasy romance, a duet with the Siren Duke by Elise Kova. It's the 4th Married to Magic book. The first one is like the deal with the Elf King. So each of them are basically like a girl getting married to someone that she doesn't really know, and then they like get to know each other after they're already married, which is, strange premise, but they're fun. And this one is about a mermaid, like the mermaid area. So I'm especially excited for this one.
I didn't realize that was coming out so soon.
Yeah, there's no cover for it yet, but they tend to come out every August.
I am adding that to my list. I find those, I've never loved one of those, but I don't know what it is. It just feels kind of cozy and comfortable, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I feel the same. They're never like all-time favorites, but they're like fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also looking forward to Her Radiant Curse by Elizabeth Lim.
I have that.
Oh, that's
too.
the prequel, right?
Yeah, I haven't read the second book yet of the first duology. So I was like trying not to look at the synopsis, but I really liked the first book. So I feel like I'll like this one too.
Both Roger and I liked Six Crimson Cranes more, but I think both of us liked the sequel more than a lot of other people do.
Okay.
Even though we still liked it less than Six Crimson Cranes.
Good to know.
I feel like you're very sweet, but the way that came across was like, okay, I didn't need that information.
No, I think it is. No, I think it's good to not go in with really high expectations to like kind of tamper them, because then like a lot of times I'll go into things and end up being disappointed because I'm like, this is gonna be great, and then it's not.
Right. I know, just the way I know you were genuine, but the way it came out sounded like, okay. Also, for anybody that ends up watching this, apologies. We've started talking about August. I think I said that, but I forgot to put the little banner up. So these are August releases. So you have a bunch of the ones that I've been excited about. Her Radiant Curse, I'm especially curious to see how she does it. I like that her books are all within the same universe.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I think interesting thing about this one is that I think she like wrote this one before she wrote Six Crimson Cranes and the sequel, and like basically wrote those books in order to publish this book.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That makes me even more excited. So it's like her baby, her darling. Aw, well, that's exciting. I have found that her books don't get marketed in a way that serves them the best, because her first book, Spin the Dawn, was Project Runway meets Mulan, and then that concept really was only at the beginning of the book, and then it kind of turned into a traveling love story, and people are like, this isn't what I signed up for. And then with Six Crimson Cranes, a lot of people loved it, and the next one's The Dragon's Promise, and people were like, we're gonna get to see so much of the Dragon Kingdom and see more dragons. And again, it was like part of it, so then I think a lot of people were disappointed because they're like, we were barely with the Dragon Kingdom. And so I always kind of feel bad that I think sometimes the marketing, they go too hard on a specific element of the story.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then it leaves people disappointed.
Yeah,
But
they
I
look
like
for
the
those
book.
like buzzwords.
That could be a whole other topic. It's
Yeah,
just when
marketing
marketing.
off. That, I
And
think
marketing
that's turns
fails.
off more than anything when it's like so specific. It's like X meets X, and it'll be
Mhm.
like a book that I don't like or a trope that I don't like, and they mash it with something that I am interested in, and it just like turn out well. So
I do think it's interesting what, and this actually ties to one of my anticipated releases for August. He Who Drowned the World,
Mm.
which is the sequel to She Who Became the Sun. And She Who Became the Sun, I saw in the comp titles, oh my gosh, the one everybody loves about Achilles, Song of Achilles. And I'm like, I don't really feel like
yeah.
these feel that alike. So that was an instance where I was like, really? All right, I guess. Another one that I've seen before, I love Winnowing Flame, which is no secret. But I saw something that said it was like Hobb meets Jay Kristoff, I think. And I was like, no. I mean, those are such
How would that
different
happen?
fans.
Different, yeah.
I guess in a way it's kind of accurate because I'm like, those are so different. And one of them's edgy and then one of them's like more character focused. And I guess if you switch those together, what do you think, Roger? Because I know you've read all of those things I just said.
I don't see that like at all. Because like Kristoff is like very, I don't know, like stylistic in the way he chooses to write that makes me feel like I'm walking into like early 2000s Hot Topic. And then Hobb is like nigh on trauma porn. And I don't feel like either of those things happen in The Winnowing Flame from what I've read. I mean, I've only read the first two books, so maybe the third book we really get some real deep trauma, but I'd be really surprised.
I think the second book, which I know you've read, is the one that has the most dark, just like, whoa, what the heck kind of a moment. I guess there's the occasional dark thing, but not in the way, it's not early 2000s Hot Topic dark.
No, and it's more like sci-fi horror when it gets dark.
Yes. Yep. I would.
It's not as much like people just doing horrific things to each other and then we're just like brewing in the horror of it all like Hobb. And it's not like swearing and just gore everywhere like Kristoff. So that seems like a very weird comp.
I think the key there is that what the heck even is Winnowing Flame like? I think that's the problem. It's not really like a lot of other things. Anyway, I know another one that I'm interested in is The Water Outlaws. Have you all heard about this one? The cover is phenomenal. So it's one of those, like, even just that pulled me in. I might want to pull up really quick.
I have seen this cover.
Seen that.
It's one of those that I wonder if it got pushed back because I could have sworn I saw it on anticipated releases for earlier in the year. And then whenever I would check back in with what's coming up, I would see this one wasn't there. And so I don't know if it got pushed back or something, but let me see. It says inspired by classics of martial arts literature. And it says the Water Outlaws are bandits of devastating ruthlessness, unseemly femininity, dangerous philosophies, and ungovernable gender who are ready to make history or tear it apart. That sounds kind of cool. It says at the bottom,
Is it more
they're
historical
also
fiction? Or is it, what is it?
Let's see. It's talking a lot about the characters in the synopsis. It says there's somebody with a vendetta that rips apart their lives and then disgraced and seen as a criminal. One of our characters goes on the run. Anyway, at the very end, it says they're murderers, thieves, smugglers, and cutthroats. Apart, they love like demons and fight like tigers. Together, they could bring down an empire. So I don't know too much exactly. It's kind of like I said, it seems like it's focusing a lot on the characters in the synopsis and not necessarily the plot.
Yeah.
But it sounds cool.
Mhm.
So, there's a couple others that sounded interesting, but they're not probably top priority for me. What is top priority for me is in September. So if you're all good to move to September, does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yay. I'll go last. So,
I'll steal your
Tori,
thunder because I'm sure Fragile Threads of Power is on there.
of course. Tori, do you want to kick it off for September?
Yeah, so there are 3 I have my eye on in September. The first is City of Bones by Martha Wells. And this is being picked, I think it's being picked up by Tor. And so they're republishing it and it comes out, I think it's September 5th. It sounds really good. It has like a blend of sci-fi, fantasy, dystopia almost. I'm not even sure if I can completely summarize it, but yeah, it's like this ancient city and this main character, has to find these ancient relics throughout the city. So, I mean, it has solid reviews already, just like kind of a 3.9 and almost 4,000 ratings. So I'm excited to see what it's going to be like when it's like re-released in September.
Was it originally self-published or just published through a smaller?
I don't remember. I'm trying to, let me see if I can find that now. It came out in like the 90s, I think, the first time.
Yeah, because it does say that it's the updated and revised edition.
Yeah, I don't know if Sarah is still hanging. Sarah of Fairy Reads, but I thought that The Witch King was the first full-length novel, which was very inaccurate. That's not true. Martha Wells has written a lot of other books, but I don't know if they've all been traditionally published or self-published. I'm not sure.
Not either. Hi.
If somebody knows more about Martha Wells' publishing journey, I'll have to look into it.
So I'm excited for that
curious.
one. And I'm not a fan of the Murderbot Diaries, which I know so many people love, but I'm interested to give her another chance and see what I think of her full-length novel. So that's the first one. And then the other one is The Fragile Threads of Power by V.E. Schwab. The Darker Shades of Magic trilogy, I haven't read it yet, but it's on my priority for the second half of the year. So I want to just like get into it and hopefully catch up before, the spinoff series comes out. Or is it a spinoff or is it just supposed to be existing in the...
I think it's like follows the ending of what happened in the first trilogy.
Okay. So yeah.
So more continuation, less spinoff, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I like V.E. Schwab. Oh, sorry, Elle, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I remember years ago, it was right when she was getting ready to publish the third book, or she had just finished the third book in, not finished, but it was about to be published for Shades of Magic, that she had, it was, I think, right before she really blew up. And she visited our local bookstore, and it was like I shouldn't say hardly any people, because there was still plenty of people, but not like an auditorium full of people. It was like a nice little room in the indie bookstore. And I remember her talking about how she'd always planned on the, I think it's technically called the Villains series, but Vicious and Vengeful. She always planned, I think, a third one to come out called Villainous. And then she talked about she always planned on there being more Shades of Magic books. So I have been waiting for this for so long. And I am,
which is just because you tend to be so picky about continuations and you usually don't want them. But this one is speaking to you.
I think because this one is something that she's always intended. I think sometimes continuations feel like the author had an idea and then they came back. Mm-hmm. And this one's like she always planned on there being others. And there's really obvious, I think, glimpses of that when you read especially the third book. Because there's a lot of things that pop up that you're like, that seems cool, what's that? Or that seems cool, what's that? For some people, to the detriment of the book's quality. Some people feel like there's too many random things that happen in the third one. But yes, it is true. It is an exception for me with my continuations. But I think, like I said, because I've always known. And same with if she does put out a third book with Vicious Vengeful, I think there will be people that are like, oh, I preferred it when it was a duology. Because people thought that about Vengeful. They were like, oh, but Vicious was a standalone. I wish she hadn't come back to it. I'm like, she always planned on there being more.
Yeah.
The
So,
one I wish she would really write the last one of is the archived series.
I know I won't start it because of that.
Those are still some of my favorites of her books.
Oh wow. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, I get on really well with V.E. Schwab's work. I haven't finished the second book in the Vicious Vengeful duology yet, but I remember I really loved Vicious when I read it. But I was one of those people that's like, oh, it's a standalone. I don't want it to be another book, but maybe one day I will go back to it. And then I loved The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So I feel like I get on with Schwab's work. So I'm going to catch up before Fragile Threads of Power comes out and hopefully be able to talk about it with all of you guys.
That would be so fun.
Yeah.
Kristen, are you planning on reading through Shades of Magic and then jumping into Threads of Power? Or are you going to just jump into Threads of Power?
I'm kind of hoping that I can reread Shades of Magic since I read them when they came out. So that was like years ago at this point.
Right.
And I feel like I do remember that one pretty well. And like I know my favorite characters and everything, but I think it would just be more enjoyable to have it like fresh in my mind.
Yeah. And Tori, you're going to be reading it for the first time.
Yeah.
Buddy read?
Coming up.
Because I was thinking of rereading. I think that'd be so fun. And I know Jessie from the Bookish Mom, I think, is a big fan as well of Shades of Magic. So I feel like maybe we need to have something happen with this.
I would be down for that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I remember very little about that series. I read it. I own it. There's Coats and Londons.
And colors.
What color are the Londons, Roger?
Red, gray, black, and white.
It's easy because they publish them in the colors of the Londons.
And his coat is red, right?
Yeah, Holland is still, even though I read those books years ago, Holland is still one of my favorite, very like morally gray. Is he a villain or is he a product of his environment kind of characters?
Me too.
So I'm excited to come back.
Lila? That's a character in this, right? Lila Bard?
Yes.
Yes.
All these random
Just start shouting things.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the main character's name and I can't remember. I was like, Kaz Brecker, and I was like, no, that's Six of Crows.
Cal.
Okay, Cal.
Yeah.
You're
Like
close.
Kelsier, but
Had the K.
off part of the name. Yeah. Yeah. Kaz Brecker. He's so much more of a softie than Kaz Brecker. I feel like Kel, if anything, Lila is more like Kaz than Kel is. But I don't think you were thinking personality. I think you were just thinking the K name.
The K name.
Yeah.
So maybe I do need to reread it to read Fractal Threads.
You need to be the one in the bunny read.
All four of us are going to return
Yes.
at the end of September to talk about it. I am just going to get out of the way that I'm very excited for Talon Sister by Jen Williams. No surprise. I feel like I find a way to talk about her in every video, and I already did even before this because we were talking about comp titles. I am so excited. That cover is cool, but I will say I feel like, it's not Winnowing Flame cool cover. I'm a little sad that I just don't feel like it's as gorgeous. I'm a little. What was that?
It's a little generic.
Yeah. I'm kind of bummed because I don't see this getting nearly as much hype as I was hoping it would. Just from, if you look at people's blogs of anticipated releases of the year and things like that, I just don't see it appearing on too many. If I didn't already follow her and know from her Instagram, I don't know that I would even be aware that this is coming out. But I'm very, very excited for another Jen Williams book. I can't wait. And I hope that it really puts her on the map for a lot of people, because I still think that she's underhyped despite all of my individual shouting that happens all the time. Let me see. Sarah's filling us in about Martha Wells through a small press.
Oh, okay.
Seems like Tor originally published it and then they're republishing it.
They're republishing it? Oh, interesting.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, that's helpful. So I wonder, like, if it's just new content that's going to be in the book, maybe new subplots, or yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, that actually reminds me of another August book is Samantha Shannon's Bone Season is being re-released, and it's the like 10th anniversary, and she like completely edited it, and she said it's like one of the most heavily edited
Wow.
like revisions that anyone's ever done to a book that's already been published.
Interesting.
So I've never read that series, and I feel like that's probably a better place to start than with the original like text.
Yeah. When
I
is
know
that?
Sarah's.
I think it's August like 11th or August 25th.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Sarah knows about that series as well, if she wants to chime in. I've never read that series, but it's one that I've been meaning to read. I just was waiting for, because it's not complete, right? It hasn't been complete for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's one. I also am very excited because one of my favorite manga series, I believe the next volume of Witch Hat Atelier is scheduled for September.
Yeah.
And where the stupid 10th volume leaves off is not okay. I need that 11th volume. Roger, you're with me on this, right?
I just remember you being offended when I was like, homophobia.
I was not. Why do you always do that? I wasn't even a little bit. You and Jashana both always do this to me where you're like, well, Elle was just so bothered by this random thing that she wasn't actually bothered by. She would do that whenever she would talk about not loving Mistborn. She'd be like, I know that it really bothers Elle. And I'm like, I really don't care. So no, it's because there's a very sad situation where there are two men who are together, and when one of them is trying to get information about what happened to his loved one, they're like, well, you're not family, and they won't tell him the information. And that's when Roger
Homophobia.
Roger's like, homophobia. And I was like, I know, isn't it sad? That was my reaction, not Roger with your with your feelings.
With your gay agenda.
Happy Pride Month. Anyway, yeah, volume 11 of Witch Hat Atelier is much needed, and I believe it comes out in September. I thought it was going to come out earlier, but when I checked, it said September. So I know we kind of bounced around. What was that?
It might have changed because I feel like it was supposed to be July.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm not out of my mind. I thought it was July. Luna just walked in and yawned really loudly and laid down. So
like that's
maybe heard. Yeah. We've been bouncing around. Kristen, did you want to mention
Yes.
September release?
So September, I am very much looking forward to A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. This one is like a dark academia kind of fantasy, and it's following this girl who has the opportunity to like redesign the house of like a very famous architect that's kind of like crumbling. And when she gets there, she's there with another student who I think like doesn't have any appreciation for it, and the two of them are kind of like butting heads, and then maybe there's like something supernatural happening in the house.
Oh,
that sounds cool.
Yeah.
And this is the author of The Wolf and the Woodsman, right?
Yes. And Juniper and
Which
Thorn.
I liked, and no one else does.
I haven't read that yet.
You like Juniper and Thorn, or the
Wolf and the Woodsman? I haven't read Juniper and Thorn yet, but I've heard good things, but that some people interpret it in a way where they then hate it. Because I think it's about something very serious, Juniper and Thorn, if I'm not mistaken. I think it involves assault and kind of like the healing from that, but I think it doesn't shy away from showing that it's awful or something. And so I think this is all kind of fuzzy. I don't actually know because I try not to look into things too much when I haven't read them yet because I don't want to be too influenced. But I know The Wolf and the Woodsman. I was like, I liked that. And then it seemed like no one else did. I think its average rating is really low.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm going to look it up really quick. Roger, did you have one?
for what month are we in now? September. The Navigating Fox, I think, sounds really cute. It's comped to Redwall with like kind of talking animals, and there's a fox that like guides people to the underworld, and something happened in his previous navigation, and so he's trying to like regain his like credibility as like a guide. The cover is really cute.
That sounds.
Oh, that is
it-
cute.
It sounds good. I'm writing it down.
Yeah, I'm writing that one down too.
I think that's the only other one that I have that wasn't said already.
Sorry.
Oh no, I mean,
The Wolf and the Woodsman is a 3.55. It's pretty low.
Oh, yeah. For Goodreads, that does seem. I don't know. That's not like awful, but on Goodreads, anything that's like 3.5 and lower, my brain is like, oh, what's wrong with that book?
Yeah.
What do people like about this book?
Let me see, Sarah. First. Oh, about the Bone season.
Oh, okay.
So I have The Art of Destiny as a anticipated release, which gosh, these stupid covers are so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the sequel to The Art of Prophecy. Here's the first one here.
I have this book on my TBR. I've been meaning to get to that.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Me too.
it's quite goofy at times. I feel like these covers make it seem like it's gonna be so cool, and it is cool, but it's also really, really silly sometimes. But I have
It's
a
like
lot
the
of fun
Jackie
with
Chan
it.
Adventures.
That's what I
That super
always say.
horrible animated like show.
Yeah. That's what did he always say in that show? I feel like there was
Which
a
one?
catch.
Uncle must do research.
That show was very silly, but The Art of Destiny sounds quite good. Obviously, it's a sequel, so you can't say too much about it. But yeah, the first one definitely feels like a Jackie Chan movie or animated show in book form. And then A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. That series is like my guilty pleasure series. I just think it's so ridiculous.
Got pushed back though. It's October.
No.
October 24th.
Oh, thank you for telling me. I'm sad now.
I
I,
know.
for some reason, in my notes, wrote A Curse for True Blood instead of True Love. And I don't know why, because I've never watched the show True Blood, so I don't really know why that popped up. But yeah, I guess it's October. But I am excited for that one. I think those were the
Me too.
Hexologists by Josiah Bancroft, who wrote Senlin Ascends.
Oh,
Have
yeah.
any of you heard of it?
I've heard of that, but I don't know anything about it.
I don't know much about it either. It's one that I want to look more into, but the cover is definitely very intriguing. And just it being
Yeah.
Josiah Bancroft, I think he writes things that are quite different from a
Mhm.
lot of the other things we see in fantasy. So I guess shifting to October, unless there's other September releases that we haven't covered.
I do have another one for September.
Okay.
Starter Villain by John Scalzi. The cover is amazing.
He's the one who did the Kaiju Society or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the
I
one.
have seen this cover.
It's so funny, but it's like it takes place in the modern world, and I think it's basically like if cats kind of started taking over. It just sounds like it's going to be very funny.
That does sound fun. And you had another one, right?
Oh yeah, so the one that I kind of have my eye on is Black River Orchard by Chuck Wendig, and this is out on September 26th. Sounds really interesting. We'll see. Chuck Wendig is a little hit or miss for me. I ended up DNFing the Book of Accidents, but I think eventually I do want to try to read it again, maybe in an audiobook form. But I really enjoy Wanderers by him, which I closed out last year with. So this one sounds good. It's like this small town that is transformed by dark magic when this tree begins bearing magical apples. So
That
we'll
sounds
see.
interesting.
We'll see what happens with that. Chuck Wendig, he's interesting. He's a little weird. But
Is it more fantasy horror-esque?
I think so. Yeah. I think the primary genre is horror, and Chuck Wendig, he always wants to throw something fantastical in there. So.
Okay. I think, yeah, with horror, it's kind of sometimes like, well, I guess it already is somewhat fantasy leaning because it's not a thriller. It's just much, much scarier.
Yeah.
A Tempest of Tea. I think I've heard of this one.
Ooh.
Oh, yes. I have. I haven't read this author's other series yet, though. I meant to quite a while ago. A Tempest of Tea. Oh, I'm so stupid. I didn't put it on the screen, so nobody else can see it but me. Let's see. There we go. We Hunt the Flame, I think is the other series. I don't know too much about this one, but cover is definitely intriguing. I think I've seen it and I read about it once, but I didn't know when it was. The date moved. How dare they? Well, I guess from here on out, we'll just say October through December because there's the risk of these things being pushed back. But for the remainder of the year, plus we also probably will have less for the last 3 months. Were there any other for September before we go to October through December? No? Okay. October, I don't have that much. Spy Family Volume 10, I think, is scheduled to come out. Which Spy Family is so funny and delightful and ridiculous. So I can't wait for more of it. Have any of you read any or watched any Spy Family?
I watched the anime.
Yeah, the anime is great. It's basically the same as the manga is still a little ahead of the anime. The anime is not totally caught up. But it's such a ridiculous, it's so ridiculous. And Bond, so cute. When we first started it, I told Sean immediately, I was like, you have to check out Spy Family. And it was funny because the little girl is a telepath. And so he was thinking she was going to be exceptionally smart. And she's not. She's just like a little kid, right? But she also isn't the brightest. So then she's like not only just not a super genius, she's also just kind of like barely passing in school and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yes. It's so much fun.
Yeah. If you want something to immediately put you in a good mood, Spy Family is like the absolute best recommendation, I think.
Oh, okay. Writing it down. Spy Family.
Sarah and I both agree that Lloyd Forger is like our fictional crush.
That's cute.
I can see that.
Whenever people are like, because that's a question I think on the mid-year book tag and stuff. I'm not really one to have like crushes on fictional.
Yeah, your newest fictional crush or whatever.
Yeah.
The one question I always like dodge.
Yeah. But Sarah and I are both like, well, I'll tell you how it got brought up because Sarah. So Sean, because we watched the show together and read the manga and whatnot, Sean was like, so is Lloyd Forger like because people will say waifu. I feel like I never know how to say it, but basically the husband version. Yeah, husbando, the husband version of a waifu. Sean was like, is Lloyd Forger like the male version of a waifu? And I was like, yeah. And then I brought that up to Sarah, and Sarah's like, yes, I love Lloyd Forger. But I love all the characters in the show. They're all in the manga. They're all great. But yes, just the most delightful, stupid, fun show.
How long has it been running?
It's only one season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's quite new.
Cool.
Highly recommend. Anyway, besides Spy Family, what are some other October releases?
Yeah, there's one called The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon. Not sure how to pronounce her last name. But it sounds really good. It's a debut fantasy romance trilogy set in a Southeast Asia inspired world ravaged by storms. It says perfect for fans of R.F. Kuang and Sarah J. Maas.
See, if I read the description of the book, I'm excited. If I hear those comps, I immediately want to run away.
Yeah.
Well, every fantasy
Babel,
romance.
not a fan. Sarah J. Maas.
Yeah.
The cover is really pretty.
The cover is really pretty. And I don't know, I'm not big into fantasy romance, but for some reason this like strikes me as maybe sounding a little more on the heavy like fantasy side with just some romance in there versus like, you know, other fantasy romance. It's like very romance heavy. So we'll see, but it sounds really good.
I want to buddy read that with you now.
Oh wait,
I think
let's do that.
That would be fun. And I kind of think by talking about there being a ton of storms, I'm like, compare it to Stormlight Archive. But that's probably not their demographic. But I'm like, well, you might pull some more people in if you said.
Yeah.
because it's supposed to be like pretty hardcore enemies to lovers, right? It's like two warring kingdoms and the people meet and they're either going to save the world or not destroy things or whatever it is.
I feel like you described any fantasy romance enemies to lovers.
Yeah, literally.
I have, speaking of fantasy romance, the physical edition of The Endless War, which is the 4th Bridge Kingdom book, comes out. It's she has an interesting deal where her books are released on Audible first, and they have to be exclusive on Audible for a couple months before the physical copies come out. So that one comes
just
out
such weird deals. They're so mean to the authors.
Yeah.
And then Secret Project 4, you know, more Secret Project. I don't have too many. I'll just kind of run through really quick. I have Defiant, another Sanderson, in November. Something called Iron Flame that I thought sounded cool for November. And then This Cursed Light, or This Cursed Light, I don't know how you want to say it, for December.
Nice.
Yeah. Because I think I told you, I was like, we should buddy read it. Did that one get pushed back?
Yeah. I really liked the first one.
It was a ray of sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and not just because the one special edition is a hideously bright yellow.
It's
not hideous. It's not hideous. It's just like on the shelf. It looks like a highlighter is in the middle of your shelf.
Yeah.
It's very bright. Really quick, Iron Flame. Hopefully it actually comes out. Or not comes out, but shows up. Book. Oh, I know what this is. This is a sequel to, what am I talking about? This is a sequel to Fourth Wing.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's an anticipated release for you, Al? Weird.
It's your new favorite book?
I had it written down. I thought I had something else written that was one of those like, what's this? I'm going to write this down releases. And it must have been for a different month. And I must have mixed it up with, I think the Ebony Gate. That's the one. Hold on. Ebony Gate is the one I was thinking of, not Iron Flame. Although, I mean, Iron Flame is probably going to be just as hilarious as the other book. Now, Ebony Gate sounds super cool. Let me pull the, this was way back for July, but I missed it when we were talking about it earlier. I saw a comparison that said something like John Wick, but with dragons or something really cool. And I was like, okay. And there's assassins and stuff.
Oh, I love the cover.
Yeah. The other day, yesterday, I was doing a sprint for World Hoppers, and a number of people were reading Fourth Wing, and one of them was like, Elle, are you sad that so many of us are reading Fourth Wing? I was like, no, I mean, it's hilarious. So I'm glad people are having a good time with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fun book, but
it's fun.
There's still so many conspiracy theories. How does it have like a 4.7 average rating on Goodreads? Like,
yeah.
Where did it come from? Why is it everywhere? Like, I don't know.
I think it has over 50,000 ratings at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a little wild.
I haven't read that yet.
Oh, sorry.
I read the first two chapters, and the first 2 chapters was sufficient.
Oh, really?
I'm on the fence about reading book 2. Because the story itself is really entertaining, but I was just not a fan of the writing, and I don't want to be in that character's head for another like 400 pages when the book comes out. But like, I don't know. I like the story. I like the dragon, so we'll see.
That is one of those books that I'm like, I'm just having fun watching the chaos of like everything. I don't know. It's funny because I follow a lot of book accounts on Instagram. I have seen post after post after post of Fourth Wing. And now sometimes even when I go to search something, I get recommended posts for Fourth Wing. And I'm like, I can't escape it. It's everywhere. And I've sent it to Roger, and then I was telling another friend about it, and like yesterday I got recommended more, and I sent my friend screenshots, and I'm like, it's my personal hell.
Oh my god.
Because it's just all these people that are like 1 trillion stars.
It seems like even like non-fantasy readers are like loving it. And
Yeah.
I feel like for me it's going to be pretty middling, but I haven't tried it yet.
For me, I could see if like you were just looking for something that was kind of a fast pace, you don't want to engage your brain. But the second you start thinking about anything that's going on in the plot, it like immediately starts to fall apart where you're like, why is her mom such a frigid B word? And like, why can she not just be a scholar? Why does she need to go and like try to kill herself for you? And then like
they must be
the
dragon
pet
riders.
scene like is so dumb.
It's
I agree, Sarah. I don't know how it's gonna be.
5 books. Good Lord.
It's supposed to be 5 books.
And you know, I don't think it's robots, just from the sheer amount of posts I've seen on Instagram. I think it's just very marketed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I see it. I'm mostly on TikTok. I see it all over TikTok. And even like I'll hit not interested. Like,
well, isn't that where it's supposed to came from? I thought I heard that it started blowing up on TikTok first.
I think so. You know, I think the marketing just did such a good job getting it into hands of fantasy romance readers, mostly romance readers who wanted to get into fantasy. And so, yeah, by the time it came out, it had just completely blew up. But yeah,
I saw posts about it
TikTok.
on Instagram before it was out, because I remember sending myself posts being like, what's this? I'll have to look into this. Anyway, sorry to sidetrack us from
Yeah, that's okay.
So Ebony Gate is what I meant. But you know, Iron Flame too. We'll go ahead and say that. For the remainder of the year, Kristen, do you want to list off what you have?
Sure. I feel like I had a lot for October. So I'll kind of do like lightning round things. But actually I'll start with a November one. That's probably like, well, actually 2 November ones that are like my most exciting. Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldry.
Oh, yes.
That's the prequel to Legends and Lattes. So very excited for that. The cover art on these is just like so good and cozy fantasy. I feel like everyone knows Legends and Lattes by now.
Yep.
And then the other one, which was just recently announced, is The Narrow Road Between Desires by Patrick Rothfuss, which is the new King Killer novella that's like not completely new because it's kind of an expanded version of The Lightning Tree, from what I understand. Mm-hmm. It's not the 3rd book, but I'll take it. And I
feel so bad for all of you who have been waiting for so long.
I know. I actually I'm curious. Name of the Wind has always been like one of my favorite books, but it was also like the first adult fantasy book that I ever read. So I'm curious if I were to go back and reread it, if I would love it the same way that I did back in like a million years ago.
Yeah.
So other ones on my list are Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. That one is like a spin-off series to the Kingdom of the Wicked. I think this series is basically following Envy. I was a little iffy on the last book in the trilogy, but I'm still gonna give this one a try. Also looking forward to Lore Olympus Volume 5 by Rachel Smith. Even though I've already read it because I read the webtoon, I'm just excited to get a physical copy of it. Also Sword Catcher by Cassandra Clare.
Yeah.
That's her first adult fantasy. So I think that'll be kind of fun to see. And
this is supposed to be epic fantasy, which will be different for her.
Yeah.
Because she usually does such like CW, almost Buffy style.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm reading the last Chain of Thorns book right now, and the drama. It's a lot. And actually, so speaking of that, there's another series of Shadowhunter books that's called The Eldest Curses. And the last one has been supposed to come out It's been
being delayed forever.
Yeah, it's been like 2 years, I think, and it still hasn't come out. But I'm thinking it's because Cassandra Clare is releasing that and Wesley Chu is releasing his own books. So that they're probably like focused on those. But I'm hopeful that that last one will come out eventually. Also, Silverborn by Jessica Townsend. There's no cover yet. It's supposed to be coming out on October 10th, but this one has also been pushed back like years. So not really holding out too much hope, but maybe.
Yeah.
Saga Volume 11.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize that series was that far along.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be 12 volumes, so it's almost like coming to a close.
Yeah. Cool.
And then there's a new Avatar: The Last Airbender OGN that's called Azula in the Spirit Temple. That's pretty much my list.
It gets harder and harder at the end of the year because there's fewer releases. And
Yeah.
Tori, did you want to do lightning round, or do you have most of yours that we've already talked about?
Yeah, the other one, Sword Catcher. I'm curious about that one. I've never read any of the Shadowhunter books. I remember I tried so many years ago to read the first one and just didn't click with it and just never went back to it. So I feel
If you
like
ever do go back, just
I
skip
feel
Mortal
you.
Instruments and jump into Infernal Devices because
Yeah.
okay.
I actually so I've read like all of them at this point, but the Mortal Instruments doesn't get good until book 6.
Oh wow, okay.
So it's a
Wow.
lot to have to read 5
Yes.
of them before there's a good one.
plus it has such a weird trope. Like why was that the choice that was made?
I don't know.
I'm just glad I watched the show first, so then when I got into the book, I knew, and I was like, "Oh, thank God!"
Yeah.
Gosh.
I hated the first book and I had no desire to continue, but one of my best friends read all of them and like basically just badgered me until I couldn't take it anymore. And now I'm like deep in it.
Now you're in it.
But the Infernal Devices is probably the best love triangle I've ever read. It is so
Agreed.
good.
Completely agreed.
Wow. Okay. Maybe one day I will.
I don't usually like love triangles, so that's where it's like even more weird.
Same.
Okay. And then the last one I'm really looking forward to. Actually, I think this one is, I'm not sure of the release date. Maybe it's late October, maybe November, but it's The Reformatory by Tanana Reeve Dew. I'm really excited for this. I love Tanana Reeve Dew. The Good House was incredible. My Soul to Keep, incredible. So I'm not even sure what this one is going to be about, but it has her name on it, and I'm just like, give it to me. So that's where I am with that. It says October 31st is the expected publication date.
That's a cool color combination.
Yeah. So it's like going to be a blend of like horror, historical fiction. It says it's a gripping, page-turning novel set in Jim Crow, Florida, that follows Robert Stevens as he is sent to a segregated reform school that is a chamber of terrors.
Oh my gosh, that sounds very intense.
Very heavy.
She's such a great storyteller, a fantastic writer. I want to see what she's going to do with this. So
I at first was going to make a joke that you could just go to Florida right now, but then you kept going about how awful the situation is. So I was like, okay, I don't want to say that that's the same. Roger, did you have any more for the rest?
I have The Ashfire King by Chelsea Abdullah, the follow-up to The Stardust Thief. And especially with where The Stardust Thief left off, like I am really excited for this one.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was coming out.
Yeah, that's November 14th.
Oh, wow.
And then the only other one I have is going to be only for me because it's Slay by Laurel K. Hamilton, book 30 of the Anita Blake Vampire series. But I'm kind of annoyed about it because I feel like she basically had a longer book that was split in two just so that she could publish book 30 on the 30th anniversary of her series. Because Smolder, which came out in March, there was not a complete story there. It like introduced this new like murder crime that was happening like in the first part of the book, and then we never did anything with it for the rest of the book whatsoever. And I was like, what happened? Like you set up an interesting plot, but then we did nothing. So I feel like she literally, and it was kind of short for her. Like she's been writing longer and longer books like most New York Times bestselling authors when they seem to no longer have any kind of editing oversight. They just seem to get longer and longer. And this one was all of a sudden like a 300-page book, and I was like, "Oh, that's short." And then I thought, "Oh, because there's another one in
That's
November."
why.
I love your commitment to these like super long series.
Yeah.
That's why I always laugh when people are like, "Oh, it's like 15 books." I was like, "Well, that's not the problem. The problem is just the series is not good." Like, because I've been reading Anita Blake probably since junior high, which questionable about why I was reading that kind of book in junior high, but
That's hilarious.
Yeah, some of the content you've described is pretty intense. It's a fun note to end this on. I'm really excited because I was a little nervous that we would have so many of the same, but we actually had such a nice mix. So I added a bunch to my list, or some that I was interested in. I just didn't realize came out this year. So hopefully other people found this helpful. I think this was less about talking about what each individual book was about and more of like a reminder of what's coming out this year.
Yeah.
Or hopefully will come out still this year if things don't get pushed back. But a big thank you to Roger and Kristen and Tori for joining me. Be on the lookout for a potential buddy read along for Shades of Magic.
Roger needs to join.
Yeah,
let's do
Roger.
it. I'll put it in the box that's coming with me.
Perfect. That actually would be really fun. I've been kind of on the fence, but I feel like after talking to you three, I'm like, I should reread it, and then we can.
Well, at first I was like, I don't need to reread it. I'm fine. And then I'm like sitting here and I was like, nope, that's fake news.
What's his name? Cass.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. But thank you for joining, and for those that end up watching this, thanks for watching. We hope everybody has a great rest of your day.